Let's talk some Michigan Wolverine recruiting. There was a big spring game, but first we are going to talk transfer portal. And as always, transfer portal talk. It's brought to you by Teamworks Intelligence. Every player, every metric, every advantage. Talk Michigan recruiting. There was a big spring game in Ann Arbor, but I got EJ Holland here from the Wolverine. We got to talk portal. The portal's been open for about 5 days. EJ, what has Michigan accomplished so far, and who are some names Michigan fans need to be watching as we keep on moving through this portal window?
Yeah, this week will be really interesting. I mean, obviously, it's a short window, so you only have 5 more days to figure out if you're going to jump in the portal, if you are a potential portal player. The spring window closes on the 25th, so not a lot of time for guys to hop in the portal. I think this week will be especially crucial for Michigan as well. They haven't had a ton of movement at real priority positions. They did get a couple of commits. They landed a punter, Luke Bauer out of Mizzou. They did get a third running back in CJ Hester, who committed from UMass. So remember, the Wolverines added a transfer during the winter window in Justice Haynes. They also have Jordan Marshall, much touted recruit on the roster as well. That's expected to be your 1-2 punch, but CJ Hester adds some depth with Ben Hall leaving via the portal a few days ago. So those are the two they've added, not really highlight real names or not real priority positions. I think if you look over at the Wolverine message board, everybody's asking, where's the premier left tackle? Where's the wide receiver? Those are the two big priority positions that everybody can see. Look, Michigan needs help. The wide receiver room wasn't very productive last year. Now you have Bryce Underwood. Get him a big time weapon. You look at last year's offensive line production, it was not up to par. Especially at the University of Michigan, coming off back-to-back Joe Moore awards. They had a big dip in the way the offensive line performed. Michigan invested a lot, just in coaching. They got Grant Newsome some help with NFL veteran Juan Castillo. Sharon Moore still personally involved in the offensive line. But look, you still need the talent up front. So it'll be interesting to see who they really target there. Some guys have already come off the board. You saw Joe Cotton commit to Cincinnati, who was arguably Michigan's top offensive tackle target, but not a lot of big names in the portal right now at tackle or wide receiver. So again, we're monitoring the portal, seeing who enters, and then there's still quarterback, right? Mikey Keene, Michigan's winter transfer portal addition at the quarterback position from Fresno State, did not participate in spring ball, was not present at the spring game, or at least not playing in the spring game. So I think he's a guy that we're still tracking to see if he's going to be healthy enough to compete for the starting job with Bryce Underwood, or at least be a viable backup, because I think all signs point to Underwood starting at this point. But, they still need some depth. I mean, they only had 2 healthy quarterbacks during spring practice, Bryce Underwood and Jaden Davis. And I mean, Bryce has been fantastic, but he's still a true freshman, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if something happens to Bryce, you still need a guy behind him. And you'd also like a veteran there to push him, be able to give him advice. And that was supposed to be Keene. Keene hasn't been practicing, right? So Jaden Davis, if I'm a Michigan fan, I'm not really comfortable with Jaden Davis being quarterback too. He didn't play at all last year. He didn't really have a great outing at the spring game, threw for less than 100 yards and a couple of interceptions. So, Brendan Sullivan, who is transferring from Iowa, remains an option. Pete Nakos, our On3 transfer portal insider, one of the best in the business, reported that Michigan has interest. He's a guy that I think I mentioned when I came on the show not too long ago that Michigan could take a look at going into the spring transfer portal window. So it looks like they're doing that. It'll be interesting to see if they get him on campus. He's a legacy. He's a veteran guy. He could fill the role that Mikey Keene was supposed to fill. So a lot of question marks for Michigan heading into this week of the spring window when the transfer portal is set to close.
All right, let's talk a little bit about one of the biggest names from the high school level that was on campus over the weekend. And there was a bunch more names. You guys head over to the Wolverine for full coverage of the recruiting angle of Michigan spring game. But I want to talk about running back Javian Osborne because he's going to make his decision on May 3rd, and it's going to come down to Notre Dame and Michigan. We all thought heading into this visit that Notre Dame had a slight lead over the Wolverines, but EJ, Did Michigan make up ground this weekend?
I'm still gathering more information. I haven't heard anything that's led me to change my pick from Notre Dame to Michigan. It's kind of the same thing with Steve Wilfong. Steve was able to catch up with the family while they were still on campus and going through meetings. And he even posted on our board today, still digging. I'm in the same space as Steve right now. I'm still digging on this recruitment because it really just comes down to business. And we said that when we talked about him last time. Javian Osborne loves Tony Alford, Michigan's running backs coach. He loves the offense and the running back production. He loves the scheme. He loves new offensive coordinator Chip Lindsey and the way he's bringing a balanced attack to Ann Arbor. He, just fits in with what Michigan has to offer off the field as well. But Michigan hasn't really talked exact numbers with him. They've given their NIL pitch in general, but they haven't given him those exact numbers like Notre Dame has. Notre Dame has been very aggressive in doing that this cycle. And also, it's like I said, the last time we talked about Osborne, there are a lot of teams that are doing that. Michigan's just opting to wait it out, see how the court rulings play out. There's still Savion Hyder, who's their, maybe their top overall guy this cycle, 5-star running back still on the board. You have rev share coming in. So they're just taking a really measured approach with talking exact numbers with recruits. I don't know if that changed this weekend. That's something, me and Wilfong are digging to figure out. But if Michigan still did not talk exact numbers, and I haven't heard that yet, seems like it's pretty much a lock for Notre Dame, but we still have to see what we hear over the next 24 hours.
All right, there's a major development on the quarterback board, so we'll talk QB dominoes as Michigan looks to find their next quarterback. Derek Zammit, he was a target until he committed to Washington over the weekend, so Nathan Bernhardt, Brady Smeagol kind of come into focus now. How do you see it playing out?
Yeah, so Zammit kind of took Smeagol's spot at Washington. So that eliminated a competitor for Smeagol. So now you're basically down to Michigan, South Carolina, and UCLA. South Carolina has another quarterback higher on the board. It'll be interesting to see how that situation figures out. Right now, we look at UCLA as probably the biggest competitor to Michigan. I think the Wolverines really moved the needle this weekend. He had a multi-day stay in Ann Arbor. Our secondary reporter, Ethan McDowell, had a great conversation with Smeagol over at thewolverine.com. So I think that Michigan checks a lot of boxes for Smeagol. I think the drawback for him would be having to come in after Bryce Underwood. It's going to be tough to lure a quarterback who wants to get on the field to come in after Underwood, knowing you're going to have to sit for a while since Bryce is a true freshman. So right now, would I say Michigan is the team to beat for Brady Smeagol? Maybe. I mean, I would probably slightly lean that way. And you saw our Steve Wilfong put in a prediction for him at 40%. So that's probably around the same feeling I have. I'm just kind of abstaining from putting in a prediction in general. I didn't put one in for Nathan Bernhardt either. I kind of wanted to see how this situation played out. And I really do think it's 50-50. Michigan could land either quarterback. On the flip side of the coin with Nathan Bernhardt, he's not as highly touted as Smeagol, at least from a recruiting rankings perspective. So, I think there's less pressure for him to say, hey, I want to play right away or something of that nature. I think he would be a little more comfortable sitting behind Underwood and developing because he does know he has some things to work on. I think you can make the argument either way. With Smeagol, you're getting a guy who's extremely productive at the high school level, a son of a coach, really high IQ, high floor kid, just tall pocket passer, not a lot of ceiling, but kind of a safety net. On the flip side of the coin, Nathan Bernhardt, big, tall kid, 6'6", rushed for 1,000 yards, even at that height, which is impressive. Great athlete who could transition to tight end or defensive end, but at quarterback brings a lot of valuable tools as well, but is a project. So on one side, you have a high upside guy. On the other side, you have a high floor guy. Which do you want? Do you want a guy to develop behind Bryce Underwood, or do you want a viable option? Because we know, as we talked about in the portal segment, Michigan lacks depth in the quarterback room.
All right. Last question I got for you coming out of the spring weekend. Last year at this time, quarterback Bryce Underwood was a rock-solid commitment to LSU. Now, fast forward 1 year, he's the face of Michigan football. What was the recruit reaction to seeing Bryce Underwood out there in the spring game? This year's spring transfer portal window is sponsored by Teamworks Intelligence, and their mission is simple. More hits, fewer misses, and player evaluation. In the transfer portal era, data-driven recruiting isn't just an advantage, it's essential. And Teamworks Intelligence empowers your program to navigate the transfer portal with precision while simultaneously elevating your game planning and self-scouting capabilities. The same advanced analytics platform trusted by NFL teams to make multi-million-dollar personnel decisions is now available to elevate your college program's evaluation process. For athletic directors, general managers, and coaching staffs, Teamwork Intelligence delivers game-changing efficiency by streamlining the evaluation process. Instead of spending countless hours reviewing film, traveling to scout prospects, your team can assess more players with greater accuracy in even less time. This means maximizing recruiting efforts within the new budget constraints, giving you the competitive edge needed to build championship caliber programs. Don't just survive the portal era, dominate it with Teamworks Intelligence, the new standard in player evaluation.
Yeah, and not just the spring game, the entire spring. I mean, Michigan has had visitors come in and everybody's talked about Bryce Underwood. Recruits and parents, especially parents of recruits on the offensive side of the ball, have all talked about just how different the offense looks, what Michigan can do with a quarterback like Bryce Underwood. A lot of those recruits that Michigan brought in the spring also visited in the fall, and they saw an anemic passing attack, quarterbacks that were not getting the ball downfield, that were struggling. I mean, just to put it bluntly, they were struggling to complete a forward pass. So I think being able to see a talent like Bryce Underwood, not just complete passes, but also being able to push the ball down the field, seeing the arm talent, seeing his size as well, and just how imposing of a figure he is. And then he kind of became a little bit of a larger than life personality, even though he wasn't super vocal during the cycle and, all the NIL reports and everything like that. There was still so much social media buzz around him that, recruits just know who he is. They kind of followed the saga last cycle, and that was such a massive flip. Mm-hmm. So when you look at, big wide receiver targets, like Travis Johnson, on 300 wide receiver out of Virginia. I talked to him and his mom after their spring visit, and both of them just had nothing but, great things to say about Bryce Underwood and what Travis could potentially do in the offense with him. It opens the door for even tight ends. Michigan obviously has had a lot of success with tight end production, but they want to have a capable quarterback as well. And so Michigan has the lead on the On3 recruiting prediction machine for on 300 tight end Matt Ludwig out of Montana, who's, right at the top of that tight end board. So he was very impressed with Bryce Underwood. And he even catches the attention of guys in general. Obviously, some of the big offensive guys are really impressed with Underwood, but even the defensive guys, just like I said, from a general recruiting perspective, Bryce Underwood has generated so much buzz on the trail for Michigan. And he's been such a valuable tool. I mean, every visit weekend, he's been taking photos with recruits, talking to recruits, helping Michigan recruit. So he's definitely been a fantastic addition, not just on the field, but as a recruiting tool on the trail as well.
All right, Michigan fans, big weekend, not only at the high school level, but transfer portal as well. How are you guys feeling coming out of the spring game? Let us know.